welcome to the September 25th OpenJ9 community call. Please add your name and any affiliation to the attendees list just so we know who's been joining the calls. And as we do every week, we'll jump into an opportunity for anybody to raise any questions that they have, particularly from the broader community. So it says we had a lightning talk last week from Shelley, so I wasn't able to attend that due to being at Code 1. So thank you to Shelley for that. And we need to get lined up the next lightning talk. I know we've suggested the multiple shared classes cache. I'll work with some of the people who've been involved in that work to see if we can get some details on that shared, hopefully for next week. So if there are other questions or other ideas for lightning talks, please propose them. We'll get them scheduled in as quickly as we can.
Dan, this isn't a suggestion for a lightning talk, but I wondered, since we have a number of people going to conferences and user groups and doing presentations and so on, should we be maybe capturing some of that information somewhere? It doesn't have to be in this meeting, I guess, but just for people to see the engagements that we've been making with the Java community.
Yeah, that would be a good idea, possibly to capture that as blog posts on the OpenJ9 blog, or as lightning talks here. Conferences. I will take myself in action to write something up from Code 1.
I'm going to Java Dev Day in Mexico. I'll be there on Saturday. It's a large user group. Basically doing a rehash of my JVMLS talk. I guess you could add the JVMLS talk to that as well. Maybe I just need to do one of those.
Okay, no, I think that's a great idea, and I know Shelley and company have attended a number of conferences as well, and Toby has just come back from Java Zone, so I'll try and...
Oh, cool. I didn't know about that. Cool.
Try and hit him up for an update as well. So
great.
All right, so thank you for that great suggestion. Let's jump forward and take a look at the recent user-raised issues. So this one I haven't taken a look at yet. The do you use K8s to deploy Jenkins? This looks like more of a question, possibly, and so we'll follow up with that one in the issue. There is a crash starting OpenJ9, or starting Eclipse IDE with OpenJ9. I know there's been some feedback in here. We had suggested xcheck JNI, but haven't gotten a response on, or haven't gotten the output from that yet, so we need to do some work there to help resolve that. Out of memory and thread group, that one I'm not aware of. Okay. All right, so that looks like a legitimate bug or a case where we could do some better handling of out of memories. Looks like something we had previously fixed doesn't appear to be fixed. Pete, do you have an update on this one?
Lynn has a fix for it. I think he's working on a PR.
Okay, excellent. And was the DTFJ issue addressed during last week's call or discussed?
Keith's been looking at it. He doesn't yet have a fix, but he is looking.
All right. Look, sounds like the recent ones have been getting a reasonable level of attention. That's good to hear. All right. Andrew, have you been able to update the trend graphs?
Yes, I've put the all releases one up. I've got the JDK 8 and 11 stats, the latest, but I'm struggling with Excel. Trying to remember how to import this data properly, and so it'll take me a little while, but I do have the 8 and 11 data going forward.
Okay, so it looks like our share percentage is somewhere around 3%, if I can read that graph.
Yes. Yep.
All right, that's.
Although, you know, remember to treat the stats with a little bit of caution, given, you know, there's probably a lot of CI downloads in that could be repetitive.
Right, but 3% gives us a goal to improve on.
Exactly, yeah, based on that benchmark. Yeah.
All right. Are there any other questions or comments around stats that we have here? All right. All right, then we'll skip down to the discussion of our releases. Has there's sort of this one remaining item on 0.15 ready to publish the JDK 12 builds. Have they been published?
So AIX, yes. And Mac, yes, but Mac still has issues. I know Stuart was calling out for help. And he was requesting help in the TSC channel.
So the Mac builds, the notarization hasn't worked for whatever reason. It looks like the create installer jobs for Macs may be actually failing at the moment. So the 12 and 13 builds we put out on macOS do not have the notarization that the 11.04 ones did, and also that the previous 12 ones did.
So that's George, I guess, that we need to poke.
That would be ideal, as Shelley, you've seen I've attempted to prod in the TSC.
Yeah, okay. I will directly contact him and see if I can budge him.
Is there intention to re-release the Mac builds once the notarization is working, or at this point, 12 is no longer relevant?
I think we would have to re-release because, well, as Shelley is aware, there is a customer that's looking for it.
Okay.
So there are 2 customers that have asked for this, a final release of the notarization.
It's with a specific fix. That's why we had to redo Mac as well as AIX.
That's the whole point of doing this in the first place, because right now what's there isn't really right.
Okay. All right. That covers 0.15 then. For 0.16, we have the JDK 13 release. Thank you to everyone who was involved in that and getting that completed and out the door. I understand that the AIX builds, and it is still not yet included due to issues with XLC 16. So we'll try and target updating that for 0.17 at this point.
I really don't expect her to make 17. I moved it out to 18. Just to give everybody a heads up on what's going on.
All right. I will add a comment to that.
So that won't be ready until the January release. Is that your expectation? We wouldn't do a 17.1 for it if we had it ready before that.
That's a good question. Maybe we would do a 17.1. It would depend on when it starts working. But it won't be in the 17.0 release for sure.
Okay, understood. It's still actually a build failure at the moment, isn't it? As well as functional issues.
So there's two compilation issues. One is a linking problem with the JIT, and we actually have a fix that would fix OpenJ9, but it breaks IBM builds, so it's not merged. And the other problem is we can't build DDR, and that's a bigger issue. So it's going to take more time to resolve. And then we've completed a build with DDR disabled, and then we get an illegal instruction crash. And nobody's come back with information about that one yet. So given these problems, I don't think it's feasible to make the 0.17 release.
Yeah.
And we don't want to ship something with DDR disabled. It's not supportable at that point. So
yeah, and I don't expect we'll have a DDR fixed in time for 0.17.
Okay. In terms of 17, then we still have a milestone build that we were targeting for today. Has that been made available? Did those builds succeed last night?
So there were a few issues. Basically, no. I've kicked off just the JDK 11 build again, and due to the number of pipelines currently running, I'm only kicked off one because I'd rather get one done rather than several failed, as it were. So I've done 11, and we'll see how that goes on later this evening.
And 8 and 13 to follow?
Yeah, I'll probably do 8 next, I guess, unless you have any particular preference.
No, that seems reasonable.
Yeah.
So at this point, we should remind everybody that any fixes going into OpenJ9 that need to go into 0.17 have to be double delivered. And that anything in the milestone that isn't going to close out should be moved out. So we still have 34 open items in this list. That's a lot of things to take a look at. So we're not going to do that during this call. But I would like to ask everybody who's involved in OpenJ9, particularly the committers, to go through this list for their components and find the areas and items that they believe will close for this release, and those that won't, and anything that won't should be moved to 0.18. And anything that you believe is a must fix, please tag. I'm not sure if we have an appropriate label for that, but we should. If we don't have one now, I will create one.
Blocker would be one.
Blocker, perfect. So, all right, and then 0.18 release, of course, will show up in January, so we'll need to start planning for that as well, as 0.17 will be winding down. All right. Is there anything in terms of releases anyone wants to discuss that hasn't been covered yet? Okay, then we'll skip along to the regular adopt update.
Yeah, I think we covered most of this by talking about releases.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Okay.
There's not a whole lot of new things here. I mean, on the upside, thanks, Stuart, for wrangling a couple extra AIS boxes to help speed up our release capabilities because we didn't have very many for test. But other than that, yeah, I think
okay.
Pass this one.
Was there any outcome from the TSC meeting at Code One?
Waiting for Friday to hear. Yeah,
okay.
Our next meeting's Friday.
All right.
It sounded like from Hendrik's conversations, he gave us an update on some of the conversations he was having. So I'm hoping next week in this meeting we can summarize everybody's conversations from there.
Okay. In terms of the next item around contributor teams, the capability to add contributors is there. We're still waiting on the scripts to sync those contributor teams into the Eclipse project. So Toby has agreed to be our first guinea pig for that, and so we're waiting for that to show up. Now, it may be less of an issue as anyone who comments on an issue can be assigned to it. So this is something that works around a lot of the pain points that we've been seeing with being able to figure out who's working on particular issues. All right. In terms of machine updates, Adam mentioned that he's made updates but isn't on the call. So we'll just take a look through and see if there's something that jumps out at anybody that needs discussion here. All right, I don't see anything here that in red that jumps out as something that needs further discussion today, unless somebody else has something that they'd like to talk about. Okay. Sue, are you on the call to talk about website progress?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yes, slow progress. We do have some designs for the home page, performance page, and an about page, which there's some web development work going on. Usual challenge of resources being pulled across multiple projects, so not as fast progress as we'd hoped, but we're still outstanding some design work around a news page where we would normally feature our sort of new releases and highlights and that kind of thing. So yeah, still planning at some point in the future when we've got something reasonable to show that we'll do a 5-minute slot on this call just so everybody can see how we're getting on.
Do you have a rough idea of when you might want to schedule that?
Not right now, I'm afraid. I wish I had, but I think we're looking at least 3 weeks out, perhaps.
Okay. I'm just going to make a note of that at the top so we don't lose it. The lightning talks.
Okay, good.
Thank you. Is there any other business that we want to discuss?
Just a quick one regarding testing. Just in the last call, we have a test, the TestConfig folder inside of the test directory in OpenJ9. I'm looking at, as many of you know, it's now been rewritten in Java. We did the changeover this week, so we had been running it alongside the existing one. We changed over and I've started using the Java one now. so we soaked it for a few weeks. We will continue to soak for another week before getting rid of the old Perl version. But I'd like to actually shift this right out of the repo because I think it will make for easier use of it. It won't change anything of the user experience. In fact, it will become, it's rather opaque. No one should feel any different. But I wanted to give people a heads up that this is the plan. We won't do anything suddenly or without soaking for a long time, but I wanted to make sure people were aware.
So Shelley, this will get moved to adopt, I assume?
Yeah, and not into the current repo at adopt, into its own, so that anyone can use it for any style of testing.
Okay.
So what this does is eliminates us having to clone the OpenJ9 repo to get use of this. It looks like it's actually going to speed up a small amount, speed up the setup. And since for our testing here, we're already cloning multiple other repos, I don't expect that it changes anything for, certainly the user steps do not change at all.
Will that be added to the get sources scripts, or is that going to be pulled as part of the?
It's pulled as part of the Jenkins jobs, and it'll also be updated so that if you're running locally. So the running local instructions and Jenkins grinder instructions and overall jobs do not change at all.
So get sources is only used during a build, isn't it? So it
yeah, get sources goes and gets and builds. I believe the build builds some of the OpenJDK test material, but that's just a subset of the tests that are used to test OpenJ9. There's a bunch of system test material that is fetched during a job and compiled. So this change actually will happen inside a build.xml file, one additional clone. There's actually
sorry, the get sources script I had been asking about was the one when you clone a new OpenJDK extensions project. We run get sources to pull the OpenJ9 and OMR components. Do you envision that the test kit gen will be pulled as part of that, or as part of the existing
I don't
files and setup?
No change to get sources.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'd expect as well. Yeah. At the moment, am I right in saying you've only put this in the OpenJ9 Eclipse CI, so nothing's in adopt yet? Is that right?
How do you mean? Oh, no, you're using this live in adopt. We have shifted over to use the Java rewrite.
I was already doing it. Okay.
Yep. It happened this week. And since nobody noticed, we think we did well.
Yep, that's probably fair. Yeah, I was just checking as to whether you'd actually done it there or whether you'd only done it. Yeah, cool. Good. It's good news then if nobody's noticed, hopefully.
But if someone does notice any weirdness, please report to the testing channels.
Yeah, will do.
Big thank you to everybody involved in that, as it brings down the number of dependencies. It doesn't completely remove the use of Perl, but it does remove the use of some problematic Perl modules.
Yeah, so we have a follow-up item to cleanse or remove anything out of Docker files and
the playbooks, I guess.
And Ansible playbooks and doc. I've already updated the prereqs doc, but there's some follow-on tasks here. This also leads to another any other business topic, which are the OpenJ9 Docker files and the fact that we have several. And I think we should bring back the discussion of, do we collapse to the Jenkins Docker slave files, or because right now we originally had the build and test Docker files, and then the RelEng team went off and built ones to be used in for Jenkins slaves, and we still have these other build and test ones. I know there was a discussion about removing the build and test ones.
We've actually started hitting problems with even the build ones. For JDK 11, for example, I think out of the box, at least on x86, you can't build JDK 11. I think you need to add a couple of packages which are missing in the Docker files.
Right. So this would removing those original ones would eliminate having to maintain so many and having them way out of date. So I guess we don't have to talk about it here, but I wanted to say we should actively decide on this and close on that discussion in an issue somewhere.
Yeah, so just an update on that. Keith has been working on a script to generate all the different variations, given the different package commands that you need for Red Hat versus Ubuntu versus other platforms. I'm not sure what the status of that is. It's been one of those back burner tasks for a while now, and it sounds like the pain or experience is becoming more and more prominent. So I'll mention that to him and see if we can get that, at least a plan for it and links to it shared publicly.
Yeah, that'd be great. And then
Yeah.
Is he collaborating with RelEng on it, or is this again like a separate?
There's some issue at Adopt where Keith is involved, and he's suggested people take a look at his fork where they can try out this script.
Okay.
Oh, okay. He's added that now. I hadn't spotted that. I noticed there was an issue kicking around about multiple files that hadn't been updated for a while. So, yeah, that'd be good if there's a link to it now. I've got someone working in my team playing around with Docker files that we have at Adopt at the moment. So yeah, trying to get some sort of commonality and syncing up and reducing duplication would be incredibly useful for them. So yeah, if we're aware of it, that's good.
Yeah, so if you have any problems finding that link, please reach out to Keith directly. And
Gotcha.
All right. Is there any other business to discuss? Okay. Thank you, everyone, and we'll meet again next week.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thanks.